What's good, family? Today I'm going to be bringing my overview of the Book of Jasher. So, the Book of Jasher, otherwise known as the Book of the Upright, is mentioned in the Bible with these scriptures. So, what is the Book of Jasher? This book simply gives a thorough historical account of events that happened from the fall of man all the way up until the Israelites gained the land of promise, or the land of Canaan. As well, I want to highlight that this book portrays both bloodlines, the righteous and the unrighteous, with a specific highlight on the promised seed, or the righteous bloodline.
This book first starts off where the first generation of man, Adam, had transgressed Yah by eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, leading to him and his wife, Eve, to get kicked out of the garden, and they headed east. After some time had passed, they had children, and of their children, Cain and Abel, their two sons, had made an offering to Yahuwah. Cain's insincere gift not being accepted by Yahuwah, and Abel's was. This event led to Cain despising his brother Abel to the point of murdering him. During Cain's days, he was marked, cursed to be a nomad, eventually settling and making the first cities. Up to this point, I want to point out some highlights and some insights. For the first, we have during Adam and Eve's first set of children, they had 2 sons, 3 daughters. Next here is the conversation that Cain and Abel had before Cain slew Abel. Again, Cain and Abel's conversation. Cain and Abel's conversation. Another highlight here is the reason as to why Yahuwah did not accept Cain's sacrifice, because it was from the inferior fruit of the ground. Would you really want to give anybody something that's inferior in any way? Another highlight that I mentioned earlier was that during Cain's days, he was the one to make the first cities. Lastly is an event that happens a little later, but it is the flooding of the river Gihon, which is the first natural disaster that Yahuwah had brought upon earth. Moving forward here is the generations of man all the way up to Noah. This red side you see here is the genealogy of the righteous bloodline, and the black is of Cain's, or the unrighteous. I'm going to be giving a brief summary of key points that happened during each of these persons' lifetimes. After Abel was slain by Cain, we have Seth. He is the third in this bloodline. After Seth, we have Enosh. During his time, man started to transgress and rebel against Yah, making idols of wood, stone, and all types of things to worship, each to his own person. Every person had their own type of god. As I mentioned earlier as a highlight, during this time as well, Yahuwah had flooded the river Gihon, and this flood consumed 1/3 of the earth. Still after this, man did not turn from their ways, leading to more natural disasters like famine, drought, and other things. After Enosh is Kenan. During Kenan's time, he was the first king or public leader, bringing people to Yahuwah again. He was wise and directed men to serve Yah. Next, I want to point out the death of Cain. He was slain by his grandchildren that were out hunting. With the bow and arrow, they had mistaking him for an animal, they had shot and killed him. After Kenan, we have Mahalalel. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Next, we have Jared. And during Jared's time, this is when the Watchers, or the fallen angels, had come down and slept with women, creating giants. As well, they taught man a lot of heavenly secret knowledge that ultimately corrupted man. After Jared, we have your boy Enoch. He's a key figure in history at this point. He has his own book as well that's very insightful, and I definitely encourage y'all to read. It's called the Book of Enoch. There's 1, 2, and 3. I had also previously done a video on Enoch. You can check it out. But what did Enoch do? Enoch, by the instruction of Yahuwah, was given as a testimony or a witness, disapproving of the wickedness of man and of the fallen angels, or the Watchers. As Enoch taught those that wanted to hear about the way of Yah, there was peace upon earth. Another key point for this man is that Enoch never died. After 365 years, he was simply translated, being one of the 3 people in the earth to never die. Him, Elijah, and then Yahusha, of course. Next, we have Methuselah. Being Enoch's son, he followed in his ways, teaching man the right way to walk, and being successful for most of his life. The people followed, but at the latter end of Methuselah's life, man transgressed again and started walking in wickedness, essentially leading to the flood. Methuselah as well is the oldest person to ever live at 960 years old. Next, we have Lamech, and at 56 years old, this is when Adam had died, being the first death at 930 years old. And at 160, we have Seth dying at 912 years old. Next up, we have Noah as the last one righteous of his generation, and as well being chosen as the one to restart the generations of humanity on earth. During Noah's time, he walked upright with Yah. All of man had departed from Yah's way. Men took husbands' wives by force and robbed and plundered. As well, the giants were still around in these days, and during Noah's days was the mixture of species, crossbreeding, and genetics with the plants, the animals, and human beings. Concerning the genetic crossbreeding of species, in this book there are multiple accounts of people coming across such creatures, half human and half beast. Along with these encounters and mythological folklore, as well as multiple modern day accounts of people encountering such beings, leads me to believe that these beings are more than just mythology and folklore, that they can actually be real things. It was deemed by Yah to remove all people that believed in his ways to prevent them from the event of the flood, with again Noah being that chosen one to start over the generations of humankind. As well, during this time, Yahuwah had said that his spirit shall not strive with man forever. Therefore, he limited man's day to 120 years old to be the max. When Noah was 84 years old, Enosh died at 905 years old. When Noah was 179, Kenan died at 910 years old. When Noah was 234 years old, Mahalalel had died at 895 years old. When Noah was 336 years old, Jared had died at 962 years old. Finally, when Noah was 418 years old, it was only him and Methuselah left. Yah had told them to tell man to repent, to turn back to Yah, and the flood would not come, giving mankind on earth a 120-year grace period. At 498 years old, Noah had chosen a wife. When Noah was 595 years old, Lamech, his father, had died at 770 years old. During Lamech's time, he did not completely follow Yahuwah with all of his heart, kind of making him separate from this chosen line. Noah's Ark. At 595 years old, Noah was told to build the ark. It took 5 years to complete the ark, making Noah 600 when the ark was finished. Commonly known in this story, it is told that Yahuwah had told 2 of the animals to come into the ark. What is commonly not rehearsed is that 2 of the unclean animals came into the ark and 7 of the clean animals came into the ark. A list of these animals can be found in Leviticus, as the Israelites are told by Yahuwah what animals they can eat and cannot eat. Apart from Yahuwah's word that just says not to eat this animal and to eat this animal, science today is constantly proving why it is bad to eat these unclean animals. As well, these clean animals are also referred to as kosher. As well, at 600 years old, Noah had chosen 3 wives for his 3 sons. Also at 600, Methuselah died at 960 years old, as well being the oldest man to ever live. Specs on the flood. Yahuwah floods the whole earth with the foundations of the deep and the windows of heaven. All flesh, man and beast, perished except for what was on Noah's ark. As we know, water was constantly filling earth for 40 days, and it took 1 year for the flood waters to recede. After the flood, Jasher says that the ark rested on Mount Ararat, which is modern-day Turkey. Once landed on the mountain, a volcano had erupted and sealed it in place. Concerning the find of this ark, this man, Ron Wyatt, now deceased, was a biblical archaeologist. A lot of his discoveries point to the biblical stories being true and accurate, as he found sulfur balls of Sodom and Gomorrah, again Noah's Ark, Mount Sinai, the Ark of the Covenant, and many other things. This event caused Moses not to enter into the Promised Land. Mount Sinai in Exodus, where Yahuwah had came down to visit Moses and ultimately gave him the 10 Commandments. Right below this mountain, you have carvings of cows of the golden calf written in big rocks everywhere. Again, all of Ron Wyatt's discoveries point to the biblical stories being true and accurate. Here we have in the Red Sea, he found remnants of chariots and chariot wheels. What do y'all think? Here as well. Lastly, his biggest find was the Ark of the Covenant, being under the very place that Yahusha was crucified. This is an infographic showing his whole discovery of the find. Once the ark rested and everything was out of the ark, Yahweh commanded to be fruitful, fill the earth, to become strong, increase abundantly, and multiply. Similar to what Yahuwah had said at the beginning to Adam and Eve, I would say that this is really the intended purpose for mankind. As well, Yahuwah had said not to murder and shed blood, and do not consume blood, for the life of a being is in the blood. In the Bible, it is said that only blood can cover sin. Under this law, this concept is how through our wrongdoings, through our sin, we are saved through the blood of Yahushua. For the life of an animal is in its blood. It is said that blood covers the cost of sin. It is the blood that makes an atonement, repayment for sin. This is the whole concept of animal sacrificing. Because it cannot be our blood, because we are sin, we are corrupt, we are impure, but the animal is pure, it hasn't been defiled, it hasn't transgressed. Therefore, in our place, it is the pure blood that's taking place for the sin. So in Genesis chapter 9, verse 13, that Yahuwah had said he will set his bow in the clouds. the rainbow, in order to be a sign of the covenant never to flood the earth with a flood ever again. Time passes, and as man started to increase again, the lots of the earth were divided by Noah to his 3 sons and their children forever. Here are the lands of the sons, with Shem having Asia, the cold and hot regions, Ham having more of the hotter region, and Japheth having more of the colder region. Next we have Nimrod. From Ham's line, he became a popular king, and Yahuwah had blessed him, but Nimrod fell away. In Shem's bloodline, we have Terah, and Terah was a prince highly exalted under Nimrod. And at 70 years old, Abram, or Abraham, was born. Prior to Abram's birth, Nimrod was against him. There's a story of Nimrod's magicians and astrologers reading signs from the stars that ultimately depict the fall of Nimrod's kingdom and a new line of people overcoming the world. And Nimrod, of course, wanted to be in reign forever, did not like this. Not knowing it was Abraham, but it was. Nimrod was against Abram. As it was interpreted in the stars, Abram's seed would rule the earth. During Abram's childhood, Abram was hid and learned Yah's way with Noah and Shem for many years. As well, during this time, man had started worshiping their own gods. Each person their own, multiple even, for any occasion, similar to the days of the flood. There was no man that worshipped Yahuwah other than Noah's household. During the days of Nimrod, he decided to build a tower. This tower is commonly the Tower of Babel. This here is the reason why they decided to build a tower. Mainly, they decided to build this tower because they wanted to be famous and show themselves undefeated. More reasons as to why they built this tower, mainly to defeat Yahuwah, to kill everything in heaven, the angels included, and to put their own gods in heaven as well. The location of Babel is ascribed to be in the land of Shinar, which is modern-day Mesopotamia. And that location is here where you see Babel on the map. In addition to the specs for the Tower of Babel, after some point it took about 1 year just to get one brick to the top, and its whole circumference was about a 3 days walk. And the consequence of building this tower was that Yahuwah had confounded the language of the builders, therefore instituting multiple languages. And for the outcome of the tower, why we can't find it today is because Yahuwah had destroyed it. He destroyed 1/3 with fire, another 1/3 by earthquake, and another 1/3 was left as a remembrance. Where is it at now? Probably looted, destroyed, tampered with, all of that. After Babel, man had scattered and settled in their own separate areas according to their languages. Again, Japheth's sons settled north, Ham's sons settled south, and Shem's sons settled east. Following the settling of the territories, man had started to set up governments and cities, walled cities, and lived as they pleased. Moving forward in this point, Jasher chapter 11 and 12 shows the story of Nimrod versus Abram, where Abram is thrown into a furnace, and this had caused many to turn their hearts back to Yah. Later, Nimrod attempts to slay Abram again, leading Abram and Terah to flee to Canaan. In Jasher 14, we have another story of the first pharaoh and how he came into power. Briefly, the first pharaoh, named Rayakon, was a poor man from the land of Shinar, or the same land where Babel was destroyed. He had become pharaoh by taxing the burial of the dead, causing a major uproar in the land of Egypt. The pharaoh, once aware of him, admired his craftiness and cunningness, and made him second and allowing him to be over all of the government of Egypt. It was made a custom to call all the kings after him pharaoh. In Jasher chapter 15, synonymous with Genesis chapter 12, Abram goes to Egypt.
There he claims Sarai to be his sister, not his wife, in fear that Abimelech might kill him and then take his wife. So Sarai was still taken by Abimelech because of her beauty. Yahuwah had smoten the king and his land, similar to what he does to Egypt during Moses' time, until Sarai is released. In Jasher chapter 17, Yahuwah makes a covenant with Abram of circumcision at an infant's age of 8 days old to show his sign and a seal of his covenant for generation to generation. As well, he changes the names of Abram and Sarai to Abraham and Sarah. Jasher 18 and 19, we have the ways of Sodom and Gomorrah and the 5 cities around it. What was it like to live in these cities? They would bruise you or injure you and then press you to pay them for hurting you. They would give a foreigner random items and gifts, but sell him no food, and have the man walk out in the street until he died in the streets. And then once he's dead, they would take everything that was given to him one by one and throw his dead body on the outside of the city. They would take a foreigner merchant's goods by force and then taunt him by showing him what they took. As well, on the outside of the country, in a little oasis or type of valley with water, they had this mass orgy 4 times a year with all the women, wives, daughters, and virgins. The day after, if they saw somebody that they knew, they would never speak about it. Any woman that would help the poor, they would burn, cover in honey, and let her get attacked by bees. Next is a story during the lifetime of Ishmael and Isaac. Here we have the conversation that Isaac and Ishmael had that led to the sacrifice of Isaac. Isaac was basically bragging about his faith in Yahuwah and said that even if his father were to offer him as a sacrifice, he would do it. And Yahuwah had heard him and put it to the test. Not too long after, we have a meeting in heaven, similar to that of Job's story, just with Abraham instead. Following these events, Yahuwah had told Abraham to offer Isaac as an offering to Yah. Along the journey to sacrifice, an evil spirit, or Satan, tries to persuade Abraham to turn away. First he appears as an old man and tries to talk to Abraham. Then he appears to Isaac as a young man. Lastly, he transforms as a large river, but Moses recognizes that this is just a trick, and this real river that they experience goes away. Upon reaching this mountain, Abraham tells Isaac that he is chosen, that he is the one that's supposed to be sacrificed. Upon Abraham telling Isaac that he was the one to be sacrificed, this is Isaac's response. Again, Isaac really knew that this was the case, but still this experience was so real, and this whole experience wasn't taken lightly. He is happy and glad, joyful to be an offering unto Yahuwah, as he had told Ishmael. An evil spirit, or Satan, appeared to Sarah as well, who was not around Abraham and Isaac during this whole ordeal. He appeared to her as an old man and told her what they were doing. Upon this, he told her that Isaac was not sacrificed, and she was exceedingly glad with joy. This ultimately caused her to die of joy. In Jasher 24, synonymous with Genesis 24, Abram's concern for the legacy of his life led him to tell one of his servants, Eliezer, to go get a wife for his son Isaac. He wanted his son's wife to be of his own bloodline. Next we have the death of Nimrod, which is come by Esau cutting off his head, also retrieving Adam and Eve's garments, which brought forth supernatural strength that Ham had stole from Noah and was kept within the bloodline with Ham and his people. The story of Esau fighting Nimrod is found in Jasher 27. We have Esau fighting Nimrod and his servants alone, leading him to be famished and selling his birthright to Jacob, and he thought he was going to die from fighting. Jasher chapter 35, we have Dinah, the sister of the 12 brothers, was taken by force by the people of the city of Shechem, and the 12 brothers ultimately destroyed that city, starting a war between the Israelites and the Canaanites.
In Jasher chapter 36, we have one of these encounters, half creature, half human beast. For the next couple chapters, you have stories of these great battles that the 12 brothers had single-handedly with the Canaanites. These battles consist of the 12 brothers having superhuman strength, leaping over walls, having superhuman abilities, really. Powerful shrieks, Naphtali's superhuman speed. Of the 12 brothers, only 2, Benjamin and Jacob, being young, didn't go out to fight with the other brothers. After slaying many nations, the Canaanites finally made peace out of fear and exhaustion. As well, there is peace in the land all the way until the Israelites came back into the land from Egypt. In Jasher 41, we have Jacob's story. I want to point out something interesting, how Jacob and Yahusha were sold for silver. In Jasher chapter 43, verse 33, we have what I would see as Jacob's trouble, comparing itself to the way Jacob, or Israel, was when he found out that his son Joseph was slain. And this chapter of Jasher, chapter 46, shows the distress and the woe Jacob was in when he thought that Joseph was dead. I would say that this expression is used more as a metaphor, asserting that the Israelites have some sort of distress, complementing Israel's trouble to Jacob's trouble of losing his son. In Jasher chapter 44, verse 14, we have a detailed description for Joseph and Potiphar's wife, Zelicah. Even after Joseph was imprisoned for 12 years, Zelicah still came and enticed him for 3 months. Moving forward, in order for Joseph to rule second in Egypt, Yahuwah had taught him all the languages through an angel in one night, something that I can see as the gift of tongues, in order for the Egyptians to deem Joseph appropriate to be over them. Upon learning these languages, Joseph called himself Jehoshaphat. His Egyptian name was Zaphnath Paneah, something like that. In Jasher 54, there's a story of Joseph testing his brothers' genuinity and ultimately their feelings regarding selling him. He tested them by seeing if they took Benjamin, their youngest brother, would they fight for him? And they did. After this story, Israel was relocated to Egypt in the best part of the land, which was Goshen. In Jasher 56, Israel goes to bury Jacob with people of Egypt. Esau as well comes and mourns. Also during this time, Esau prevents and refuses that Jacob be buried at the cave with their fathers, leading to a big battle between the Israelites and the Edomites. causing Esau to be beheaded. As well, the Edomites flee, and from this occurrence on, they have resentment towards the Israelites. The Israelites go back to Egypt, and the Edomites go to the land of Seir, where they commit genocide and kill all the people of that land and settle there as if it were their own. From this point, the book frequently shifts between the history of the Edomites and the Israelites. At this point as well, we have Joseph dying, and Egypt rule is under a person of Egypt again. Jasher chapter 61 verses 14 and 15, we have another encounter of a humanoid beast type creature. Once all of the brothers of Jacob die, Egypt takes all of what the Israelites had and began forcing them to labor harshly. During Joseph's reign, he was a good king, and there was peace. This verse, Jasher chapter 63, shows that Yah had allowed the Israelites to be in burden for their benefit so that they would know him in their latter days. Honestly, during Joseph's reign, it was good, so that's all that they knew was good. And again, they were around a land of people that were strange to them, the Egyptians. They had multiple gods and essentially had their own way. So they didn't know their history or even their own culture. It was a mixture of Egypt and Israelite. The Levites did not go with their brothers because they knew the deceit that the Egyptians had planned. Therefore, the Egyptians didn't mess with the Levites. They stayed in the land of Goshen. But soon the Egyptians even tried bothering them. How did Egypt cause the Israelites to get into servitude? They proclaimed wages for work. They told the Egyptians to slowly withdraw from the Israelites. And then ultimately they just stopped paying them and forced them to continue the work that they were working on. And upon complaining, the Egyptians smote the Israelites and told them to continue to work. And this looked a lot like colonial slavery, probably even worse. Egypt validated fortifying the land from the Edomites' constant efforts of coming to get back at the Israelites. Egypt's plan of oppression was to diminish the Israelites in the land of Egypt. But the Israelites always grew despite the burdens that were put upon them. Upon counsel of the Egyptian wise men, a solution that they had was to kill all of the male children. Jasher chapter 26, there's a story of the Pharaoh deciding on what to do to the Israelites. This Pharaoh had a vision, and it was interpreted that the Israelites will prevail over the Egyptians. In concern, this king seeks advice from two counselors. Counselor 1 recounts the history of the Israelites and asserts who has been against Israel that their God, Yahuwah, has not avenged. He then admonishes Pharaoh to stop burdening the Israelites and let them go back to their homeland. The second counselor recounts the labors and trials of the patriarchs, so Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, contrasting the strength of the Hebrew people and their ability to withstand all that Egypt has thrown against them so far. This counselor concludes that throwing their babies in the water will remove their name from the earth. The Pharaoh takes the second counselor's advice. On the side, I do want to say that it is a shame that other people know our history, but we don't. Therefore, it is important that we know our own history, and us as Israel, being circumcised of the heart. A Jew is not physical, but therefore spiritual. In Romans, Paul says, it is not the physical circumcision, but the circumcision of the heart that makes us a Jew. And being a Jew, this is our history. We should know it. This is our law. We should know it. This is our traditions. We should know it. This is really the purpose and the point of me going through these books in the Apocrypha, to remind us of our history as Yahuwah's people. Everyone else knows our history but us. In Jasher chapter 68, we have Moses' story. It is important to note that all people called him by different names. Egypt had a name for him, Pharaoh had a name for him, Moses had a name for him, his brother Aaron had a name for him, the people of Israel had a name for him, his mother, his father, his sister, his uncle, his brother. In Jasher chapter 69, Pharaoh had yet again increased the servile burden on Israel. For example, if the Israelites broke a brick that was used in construction and decreased in their production, in the place of that brick, they would take an Israelite child and put in place of that brick. The children and the babies would be replaced for the stones. Moving forward, there is another story of as a baby, Moses being tested by the Egyptian council. Later on in Moses' story, after he had killed the Egyptian, he fled from Egypt. While he was gone, Aaron, his brother, began to admonish the people of Israel to turn from their ways and to follow Yah, as well to remove all of their idols from them. Jasher chapter 72, Moses joined the camp of Cush to help them get back their land from their own deceitful people. Soon, once the king had died among them, Moses was made a king due to his wisdom and anointing, after they got their kingdom back, ruling over the whole kingdom of Cush at 27 years old. Later during Moses' reign over the people of Cush, the past king's wife was upset. Although being married to Moses, Moses had never slept with her. Therefore she advised that there be a ruler after their own kind. So upon advice from the past king's wife, Cush gracefully and quietly removed or let Moses go from his kingly office, as he did not entreat the past king's wife, still remaining loyal to Yahuwah's covenant of not taking a Canaanite wife. Just for clarity, Moses was king over Cush for 40 years. Later on, Moses in the wilderness met a Midianite man and was imprisoned there for 10 years. During this time, his daughter Zipporah gave him food and water. Jasher chapter 76, Yahuwah had made the Pharaoh terribly ill with diseases, and his physicians could not heal him. And his physicians consoled him that only Hebrew infant blood could cure him, leading them to kill 375 infants, using their blood to wash the Pharaoh of his boils, lesions, and infections. Yah had increased the sickness of Pharaoh's body exceedingly until his death, repaying all the evil that he had did to the Israelites. This Pharaoh had reigned for 90 years. In chapter 77, still the babies of the Israelites were used instead of the bricks. Going back to Moses, he had retrieved from the Midianite man the stick that Yah had used to perform miracles. Historically, it had backtracked all the way to Adam. It was Adam's plow, used by Noah, also Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, and now it was Moses's. At this point, Moses wives Zipporah and has 2 sons. Jasher chapter 80, we have the 10 plagues. As well, Jasher chapter 81 through 88, we have Israel in the wilderness. Upon the Dead Sea miracle, the Pharaoh that was chasing them believed Yah, causing him to leave Egypt and rule over Nineveh for a while. Jasher chapter 82, we have Moses on Mount Sinai for 40 days. This is where he disapproves of Israel for making the golden calf. He grinds it up, makes Israel drink it, goes back up to Mount Sinai for another 40 days and 40 nights to get the 10 commandments again. Jasher chapter 87, we have the people of Israel getting baited by the Moabites through exploitation of the Moab women, as they were beautiful and fair to see. In Jasher chapter 88, as depicted here, Joshua had commanded the sun to stand still, and Yah did it. To get their freedom, the Israelites slew 31 nations, fought in Canaan for 5 years, and then Yahuwah had given them rest. After Joshua, judges served and maintained Yah's law for 17 years while fighting off Canaanites. I know this was a lengthy video, but I do know that this is important for us to know. As Jews of the heart, we are Yah's people, and ultimately this is our history. We should know it. All of the nations, everybody else knows it but us. We are made to be set apart and anointed amongst the whole world. As his children, let's all learn as much as we can. Let's all grow fruit. Peace.